This is Crystal Acaniro. I am Caitlin Marcus. I am the program director for Kira Joy, and um, this is going to be such a fun one. Crystal and I worked together for many years. She is now a BCBA and a mommy, and still just the dopest. I had the pleasure of supervising her and getting to see her go through her journey as a BT all the way up to that BCBA level and beyond. So I have so many fun memories
We're
of
all coming back.
the time that we worked together. It was awesome. So yeah, it's been about 10 years since the last time we saw each other, but randomly out of the blue, the other day, Crystal messaged me and she said, "Hey, how do you feel about Amelia Bedelia?" If you're not familiar with Amelia Bedelia, this is a children's book series that was around when we were kids, and it still is. But Amelia Bedelia is a very well-meaning, bumbly nanny slash housekeeper,
Yep,
something
yep.
like that. And she, has her clients that give her a list of things to do when she gets there. And she always takes them literally. And therefore, completely flubs the task. When she messaged me about this, I was like, I love Amelia Bedelia. Those were some of my favorite books when I was a kid. To being, a neurodivergent person, I can absolutely relate to just not understanding the instruction, but doing it with heart and really trying to please people and then just tremendously failing because you didn't understand the assignment.
Best of intentions. The best of
Exactly.
intentions.
Heart of gold,
Yeah,
pure, want to spread love and
yeah.
cheer and make people's lives easier. And then it just kind of ends up getting bungled a lot of the time, especially depending on who you're with and what's going on and what environment you're in and all kinds of crazy stuff. So, Crystal, do you want to tell us a little bit about how you feel about Amelia Bedelia and what actually this conversation, how it became this meeting today?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So my feelings with Amelia Bedelia growing up is like she always made me so anxious. She made me so anxious, and I was always like worried that she was going to get in trouble. Like I was just anticipating, like, Amelia, don't, as I'm like turning the page, like, just all my shoulders were up here.
Oh.
And I think what had me kind of reach out to you was we were at the library with my kids because we love libraries. And my kids went to pick out Amelia Bedelia book, and I actually put it back on the shelf when they turned around because I was like, I'm not bringing that woman into our house. And so
Come
my
on.
husband, he mentioned, he's like, hey, I think you need to work through some of your Amelia Bedelia trauma. And so that's why I reached out to you, because I was like, is it a me thing? Like, do all neurodivergent people have this experience with Amelia Bedelia? Like what's the deal with Amelia Bedelia? What are other people's perspectives on Amelia Bedelia? Or is it just like a me thing? So
No.
I like when I reached out and you're like, yes, I love Amelia Bedelia. I'm like, that's the opposite of my experience. So
Yeah.
I'm
And
really
I
glad that we're talking about it.
I literally had never considered the possibility that anyone would not like Amelia Bedelia. Like, to me, I'm just like, she's so lovable, she's so authentic, like, yay, we need more of this in the world.
Yeah.
But I think as we go through this, it'll speak to our different experiences growing
Mhm.
up and, maybe potentially like cultural differences. Are your parents
Yeah.
from Nigeria?
So my dad is from Nigeria. My mom is from the States. So I do
Got it.
think there's a cultural component to it as well, of
Yeah.
like in traditional African families, like you don't mess up. Somehow you're supposed to know that the list that wasn't clear, Amelia Bedelia's employers, you're supposed to be able to interpret that and know that. So I think it is this combination of culture meeting neurodivergent brain. Maybe I'm not
Hmm.
always attending. God, like
Yeah.
in me trying to take back Amelia Bedelia, I am seeing a lot of myself in her, and in trying to love myself, I'm trying to love Amelia Bedelia too.
Oh, I love that. So with that wonderful little introduction that we've done, we're gonna do a live reaction video to an Amelia Bedelia book and see what happens.
I got this.
Okay, let's see. I'm not good at Zoom. Crystal and I were talking about this a lot before we got on the call because it was a whole technological
Yeah.
kerfuffle. What do I
We're
do
gonna be
again?
ready for next time though. It's gonna be
Oh,
beautiful.
no, we won't. Let's be real, Crystal. Be real. I've learned to just be like, you know what? No, I'm probably gonna mess that up.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. You know what though? It's setting expectations. So I like it.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Oh,
Now you
she looks
can
just like I
see.
remember her.
I'm screen sharing. Yeah, they've actually updated. Oh, so weird. Why is it
I
like this?
saw that. It's like she's like a teenager. I'm like, who is this? I mean, maybe Amelia Bedelia was always a teenager. She's from the 60s, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't really understand. Oh, here we go. Okay, so you can you see all
I
of
can see it.
this?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. We won't have to deal with ads because here we go.
All right, I'm ready. She's got the her wonderful dessert too in the cover.
Look at how nice she is.
She does look lovely.
All right, here we go.
You do just what the list says Mrs. Rogers. Mrs. Rogers got into the car with Mr. Rogers. They drove away. My, what nice folks. I'm going to like working here, said Amelia Bedelia.
So optimistic.
Amelia Bedelia went inside. Such a grand house. These must be rich folks. But I must get to work. Here I stand just looking, and me with a whole list of things to do. Amelia Bedelia stood there a minute longer. I think I'll make a surprise for them. I'll make lemon meringue pie. I do make good pies.
That list is long.
So Amelia Bedelia went into the kitchen. She put a little of this and a pinch of that into a bowl. She mixed and she rolled. Soon her pie was ready to go into the oven. There, said Amelia Bedelia, that's done. Now, let's see what the list says, Amelia Bedelia read. Change the towels in the green bathroom. Amelia Bedelia found the green bathroom. Those towels are very nice. Why change them, she thought. Then Amelia Bedelia remembered what Mrs. Rogers had said. She must do just what the list told her.
Rigid, rule governed behavior, y'all. That's so funny about the towel. Your taste is wonderful. Why would you?
But okay, I guess I'll change them.
The list says.
Well, all right, said Amelia Bedelia. Amelia Bedelia got some scissors. She snipped a little here and a little there, and she changed those towels. There, said Amelia Bedelia. She looked at her list again.
How are your anxiety levels right now?
My palms are sweating. I'm like wiping them off on my pants. I'm like, Amelia.
Oh my gosh. And it's so funny because I am like on the opposite end of everything. I am just loving her. Check in with me if you need me to pause it and we can take a break.
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I gotta see how this furniture thing turns out.
Dust the furniture. Did you ever hear tell of such a silly thing? At my house, we undust the furniture, but to each his own way. Amelia Bedelia took one last look at the bathroom. She saw a big box with the word dusting powder on it. Well, look at that, a special powder to dust with, exclaimed Amelia Bedelia. So Amelia Bedelia dusted the furniture. That should be dusty enough. My, how nice it smells. Draw the drapes when the sun comes in, read Amelia Bedelia. She looked up. The sun was coming in. Amelia Bedelia looked at the list again. Draw the drapes? That's what it says. I'm not much of a hand at drawing, but I'll try. So Amelia Bedelia sat right down and she drew those drapes. Amelia Bedelia marked off about the drapes.
I mean, she's kind of a girl boss, right? Like she's got a job, she's on her own, she's making money. Amelia Bedelia is kind of an OG girl boss.
I'm telling you. You're gonna have a different attitude about her by the time we're done.
I got like an Amelia Bedelia fan club shirt.
It's like boss bitch. It's Amelia Bedelia.
Hashtag Amelia Bedelia.
Wait, that's gonna happen. I'm gonna make that. Watch me not, because it's just an idea that will follow through.
Yeah.
You know, one of hundreds.
Drapes. Now what? Put the lights out when you finish in the living room. Amelia Bedelia thought about this a minute. She switched off the lights, then she carefully unscrewed each bulb. And Amelia Bedelia put the lights out. So those things need to be aired out too? Just like pillows and babies? Oh, I do have a lot to learn.
Babies?
"Aye!" exclaimed Amelia Bedelia. She hurried to the kitchen. "Just right," she said. She took the pie out of the oven and put it on the table to cool. Then she looked at the list. "Measure 2 cups of rice." "That's next," said Amelia Bedelia. Amelia Bedelia found 2 cups. She filled them with rice. And Amelia Bedelia measured that rice.
For all the parents out there, if your child does stuff like this, it is not to be willful. It is not to be irritating. It is not to get on your nerves. It's not to make extra work for you. Like, you notice in a lot of these instructions that she's getting, there's multiple meanings of a lot of the words. And so even though, like, in the common vernacular, you would know that drawing the drapes, which, does anybody actually have drapes to draw anymore? Whatever, not important. It's just a different way of interpreting language, and it is inherent to people who are neurodivergent. And so it's really frustrating for us a lot of the time, because we are 1000% trying to do a good job. Like, we love doing a good job. There's almost nothing more satisfying than a job well done that we didn't mess up. Like, Amelia Bedelia is doing this stuff, and she's not doing it to be a jerk. Look at her entire countenance and the fact that she walked in and immediately was like, "I'm gonna make a pie for these people." Like, before she even looked at the list, she's like, "I want to give you something nice."
She's so well intentioned. Look how happy she looks. Look
Yeah,
how happy she looks pouring the rice back in the container.
I know.
I did it.
Technically not wrong.
Amelia Bedelia laughed. "These folks do want me to do funny things." Then she poured the rice back into the container. "The meat market will deliver a steak and a chicken. Please trim the fat before you put the steak in the icebox, and please dress the chicken." When the meat arrived, Amelia Bedelia opened the bag. She looked at the steak for a long time. "Yes," she said, "that will do nicely." Amelia Bedelia got some lace and bits of ribbon, and Amelia Bedelia trimmed that fat before she put the steak in the icebox. "Now I must dress the chicken. I wonder if she wants a he chicken or a she chicken," said Amelia Bedelia. Amelia Bedelia went right to work. Soon, the chicken was finished.
An inclusive icon over here.
This book was written way before we had anything, gender neutral or, other genders. But what also stuck out to me about that was that she's so thoughtful about what she's doing. And again, I think it just highlights that drive to please. Like, which one would she like more? A male presenting chicken or a female presenting chicken?
Maybe a non-binary chicken.
Maybe a non-binary.
In the update, in the updated version.
Amelia Bedelia heard the door open. "The folks are back," she said. She rushed out to meet them.
Crystal
Amelia
sweating.
Bedelia, "Why are all the light bulbs outside?" asked Mr. Rogers.
The moment of
"The
truth.
list just said to put the lights out," said Amelia Bedelia. "It didn't say to bring them back in." "Oh, I do hope they didn't get aired too long." "Amelia Bedelia, the sun will fade the furniture. I asked you to draw the drapes," said Mrs. Rogers. I did, see?" said Amelia Bedelia. She held up her picture. Then Mrs. Rogers saw the furniture. "The furniture!" she cried. "Did I dust it well enough?" asked Amelia Bedelia. "That's such nice dusting powder." Mr. Rogers went to wash his hands. "I say," he called, "these are very unusual towels." Mrs. Rogers dashed into the bathroom. "Oh, my best towels," she said. "Didn't I change them enough?" asked him.
Okay, so obliviousness.
Completely oblivious. Look at her. She's so happy. She's like, I did a good job.
Totally not absorbing the social context of what's going on. She is not understanding what the heck she did wrong. She followed the instruction. Did she do it correctly? No. Did she do it accurately? Actually, yes. Another thing is sometimes that we are interpreted as being rude or, again, even manipulative or trying to take the easy way out or something like that. But really, it is truly obliviousness to the fact that the expectation was actually different. And a
Mhm.
lot of times we don't realize that we even broke the expectation. It's like something that comes back to get you later. Um, where you're like, oh wow, I really did not realize that I disappointed that person so much, or that I offended them so much by, being direct when I said something.
Looking at it through this context, she's not even picking up on the social cues. Looking at Mr. and Mrs. Rogers, clearly they are upset, but right, like all red in the cheeks, furrowed brows.
Mhm.
Amelia Bedelia living her best life. Like, I did it. How did we not pick up that she was neurodivergently coded? Like, she has to be.
There's no chance that she's not neurodivergent. Like, you bring up such a good point about like completely missing the cues,
Mm.
like the facial cues, the nonverbal body language,
The tones.
she's not picking up the fact that he said these are very unusual towels means these what the f. Like, that was a really nice way of saying like you effed this up beyond belief. And a lot of times people aren't that nice about it, but yeah, no, totally. Like, she's just not getting it. And that's just her, and that's just her neurotype. It has nothing, it's not good or bad or anything, just different.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Amelia Bedelia? Mrs. Rogers went to the kitchen. I'll cook the dinner. Where is the rice I asked you to measure? I put it back in the container, but I remember it measured 4.5 inches, said Amelia Bedelia.
So helpful.
Was the meat delivered? Asked Mrs.
Thank you.
Rogers. Yes, said Amelia Bedelia. I trimmed the fat just like you said. It does look nice. Mrs. Rogers rushed to the icebox. She opened it. Lace, ribbons. Oh dear, said Mrs. Rogers.
I'm literally loving the fact that she is just smiling in every picture while this lady is just so angry.
The spots are getting bigger and bigger as we've gone on, and Amelia's just like, yep, like look, the steak's in the icebox.
The chicken. You dressed the chicken? Asked Mrs. Rogers. Yes, and I found the nicest box to put him in, said Amelia Bedelia. Box! Exclaimed Mrs. Rogers. Mrs. Rogers hurried over to the box. She lifted the lid. There lay the chicken, and he was just as dressed as he could be.
Where did she find those little lederhosen?
I think she made it. Okay, and earlier you talked about how Amelia Bedelia is so well intentioned. She's not trying to be wrong on purpose, right? I don't know if you've done this, but I see this thing of like she's making more work for herself in interpreting things the way that she did. Like, I have to dress the steak, or I need to dress the chicken. This is so much more effortful. Like, of course she's not being willfully ignorant. This is just how she's interpreting it, because she's made so much more work for herself than if she had just done it how Mrs. Rogers intended.
1000%. Like, her interpretations are so creative, and it is really interesting. She is making more work for herself by kind of casting her neurotype onto it, right?
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, I just also noticed like how much of a perfectionist she is. All of these things are done in great detail to great end. She does not do anything half-assed, even though she's doing it wrong.
The detail on this lederhosen is, and the socks, she had a container full of stuff. Nothing was made. So did she knit the socks too? Like, the embroidery on the straps, it's beautiful.
Seriously, that is a fine looking chicken.
It really is.
Props, Amelia.
Mrs. Rogers was angry. She was very angry. She opened her mouth. Mrs. Rogers meant to tell Amelia Bedelia she was fired, but before she could get the words out, Mr. Rogers put something in her mouth. It was so good. Mrs. Rogers forgot about being angry. Lemon meringue pie, she exclaimed. I made it to surprise you, said Amelia Bedelia happily. So right then and there, Mr. and Mrs. Rogers decided that Amelia Bedelia must stay. And so she did. Mrs. Rogers learned to say, undust the furniture, unlight the lights, close the drapes, and things like that. Mr. Rogers didn't care if Amelia Bedelia trimmed all of his steaks with lace.
Okay, that made me cry.
This, like, the inclusion just automatically. Like, okay, we can make accommodations,
because they realize her heart, like, that it is pure and her intentions are good, and if you just give her the right instructions, she will do that times 100.
Yeah.
And wow, I wish it was that easy.
Yeah.
And I wish that people always were able to see, where you're truly coming from and what you're trying to accomplish, because it's not always that easy. It's, a lot of times people are like, well, why don't you, read the room, or,
Just be
just
different.
uh,
Change everything about you.
yeah, exactly. And it just doesn't work. Like, we just don't think that way. And it's not like, oh, I choose not to think that way. Like, I literally can't think that way. I can't.
And
It's
it's
not.
exhausting to try. It's so exhausting to try.
All he cared about was having her there to make lemon meringue pie.
Amelia, okay, I want to know how, like, what's going on in you right now?
So somehow in the last time that I visited Amelia, which was probably with the client, honestly, I probably read it since I was a child. I forgot this part where they say like, "Hey Amelia, like we love you. We're gonna be clearer in our delivery of instructions, and like you're just our girl now. Like you're gonna be with us." I left the like last two pages out in my mind, and it was kind of really redeeming. Like I think in how I related to Amelia Bedelia with like being well intentioned, but things being wrong, and I was anticipating those angry adults in my life. I don't think I ever got to that point where they were like, it's fine, we're going to be clearer in how we're giving instructions, and like we want to keep you around, we like this about you. I mean, maybe I'm it's not exactly like a perfect metaphor,
No,
but
I get it. It makes
yeah, like
it makes total sense. Like,
yeah.
and it's so funny because I think, like, we were talking about nurture at the very beginning. My family, my parents are I'm certain that my dad is autistic, and
There's
I'm
always one
certain.
parent, yep, you're like, this
Oh
is where
my
it came
gosh,
from.
he's my twin. We understand each other like nothing. I mean, like, it is crazy how just close and connected we are, especially as I've gone through like my, diagnosis journey and just learning all these things about what high masking autism ends up looking like.
Mhm.
But because my family's quirky and offbeat, and kind of not loosey goosey, because I grew up in a very structured household. It was pretty strict,
Mhm.
but not like not like, oh, children should be seen and not heard. Like, we were definitely
Don't tell me
valued,
Victorian
and
children.
yeah, valued and supported. And my family just never really, like, we're just all weird. So like, we're all weird and goofy and silly and make noises and, bite our nails and all that. And so in my house, I was normal. And then I went to school and I was like, hmm,
Yeah, yeah.
wait up. So for me, it's always been, I mean, at least within my home, it's always been safe for me to be myself, even though
Mhm.
we didn't know what was going on. It was
Yeah,
just like an okay, everybody's just, we just accept each other and love each
yeah.
other, and enjoy each other. I'm living with my
Mhm.
mom and dad right now, and like, I love it. And we're all just like, oh, this could go on until whenever. Like, this
Yeah,
is fun, actually.
yeah.
But yeah, so just very different. Like, I knew that I wouldn't have to worry about my mom and dad
Mhm.
um like coming down on me too hard.
Yeah.
So
It is interesting because I I feel like in the home I have these very like high expectations, these like strict expectations, and so when I wouldn't do something or wouldn't like complete a chore appropriately, I had a lot of Amelia Bedelia moments. It was like I remember my mom saying, "Oh, you would have cleaned the refrigerator properly if there was $1 in there. I bet you would have found it." And I'd always tell her I wouldn't have found the dollar. So getting diagnosed with ADHD as an adult was really affirming because it was like I wouldn't have found the dollar. Like I really wouldn't have found the dollar if it was in the refrigerator.
mhm,
Um, but as a student, I always performed really well. So I don't remember getting that feedback a lot at school. And like as I've worked, I think you and I both kind of can speak to just like high performers, just because
mhm.
it's we got to keep it together. So I get, it's interesting to kind of see how you're like I'm able to maybe mask a little bit more when I'm out in the world when I'm working, and then when I'm home, it's just too much to maintain that all day, and that's where I have like my Amelia Bedelia moments.
Yeah. It's oh my goodness, so interesting. Like, kids do really need that love and support and understanding. It's like, you can grow up without it, fine, I guess, but like, it would be so much better with it. We would feel so much more secure. We would feel so much more accepted. And yeah, I feel you on diagnosis being really, really affirming, to know, oh yeah, there's a reason why, and it's like there's an actual physical reason. It's, it's not like, oh, it's just me. It feels good to know that all your life it wasn't all your fault.
It's so affirming. And I know too, like having a diagnosis comes from a place of privilege because not everybody can, especially if we're talking about an ASD diagnosis as an adult, if you can even get one, it's very expensive. Some people have careers where they can't have that diagnosis. It might be like a safety thing for them. So I had the same experience though. I found it to be very affirming when I finally did get my diagnosis, and I felt like it helped explain so much of me, that I always felt like, something was wrong with me. And it's like, no, I'm just different. And that's just how my brain works. And that's okay.
Yep. I never thought anything was wrong with you, but it takes one to know one, I guess. Like,
we're like, everything is perfectly fine.
This is normal. It's normal to be like this. Yeah, which is funny, which, we're great. Like,
I like us.
Me too. Not, I always say, like, I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but if I'm your cup of tea, I'm your cup of tea. Like, you either love me or you're like, bleh, and there's no real in between, like, which is fine. Like, I don't, it's good with me. As I keep going, I keep finding more and more of the right people. And I think that's like one of the huge benefits of diagnosis as well, is that like it opens you up to a community that you may not have felt fully qualified to enter before. So like for me, it's been so helpful to join late diagnosed autistic communities and to connect with other professionals on LinkedIn who are neurodivergent, who are, who like doing things a different way, who value people who do things a different way. And it's awesome. It's awesome talking to people who get you, who understand what it is you're trying to say when you're like, I can't form a sentence right now. It's just like, like
stuck in here.
Yeah, people don't know what that means, but an autistic person or a person with ADHD or both will know what that means. Like, and not think it's weird or not take it personally, or like not know that you're not angry at them. You're frustrated with the fact that your words aren't coming. So
yeah, I my hope is that people who are, able to get diagnosed, adults who are thinking, because I don't know, you have that like pull inside, like, hey, something's going on with me, that people are able to get diagnosed and, get therapy or whatever it is, join groups, whatever it is, it's helpful for them, because in our field, we're supposed to be inclusive. We're working with people with disabilities. I have been astounded by some of the things that I have heard people say that are supposed to be teaching kids on the spectrum. So it has been really nice to kind of be emboldened as I've learned more about myself and kind of speak up for these clients and speak up for these kids, because even though people are well-intentioned, there's a lot of ableism that's in our field. There's just I know we maybe had some not great foundations. We're kind of growing back from that. I love that there's this movement for neurodivergent people to kind of take it back, and I hope that continues, because we need it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I know we just have like a couple minutes left, so I want to wrap it up. But I think we should do this again. This was really fun. And yeah, I definitely want to talk more about like the diagnostic process and what that can or can't look like. And yeah, I think we'll figure this out. This was a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this with me.
Thank you for joining me in this conversation. I like that I messaged you and you're like, yes, let's talk about it. And we're saying Amelia like firmly neurodivergent. Yeah.
Yeah. One of 2 thumbs up. Definitely neurodivergent. 10 out of 10. No doubt in my mind. Yeah. I'm not a doctor, but
it was pretty clear. It was pretty clear. We need to get a therapist on here, someone who can diagnose, and let's kind of go through some criteria and see what Amelia meets, because
Yeah,
I'm seeing quite a few things on here.
definitely. Although I will say, like, my experience so far has been that people who believe that they are neurodivergent know more about being neurodivergent than
Surprised to hear that.
most professionals. I had to educate the diagnostician who diagnosed me and literally sent him journal articles explaining that autistic people have empathy and compassion and can
Wild.
make friends.
That's wild. Is this the
I
80s? We're talking about refrigerator moms. That's so wild to me.
I know. Okay, we're gonna get kicked off.
Okay.
I love you so much. Let's do this
Fun.
again. This
Keep me
was so
posted.
rad. Okay,
Yeah.
bye.
Bye.